The ambulance lights reflected across the wet pavement of Brookstone Hills, a gated HOA community just outside Charlotte, North Carolina. Residents peeked through curtains as paramedics rushed toward Unit 14B. 81-year-old Walter Hayes sat slumped in a recliner, clutching his chest while his daughter, Melissa, tried to keep him awake. "Stay with me, Dad. Please stay with me." Walter was a retired Korean War veteran who had lived quietly in Brookstone Hills for nearly 12 years. Neighbors respected him. He kept his lawn perfect, waved to everyone during morning walks, and never missed a veteran charity event. But HOA President Denise Carter had hated him for months. Not because Walter caused trouble, because he refused to obey her. 2 weeks earlier, Denise demanded Walter remove the wheelchair ramp recently installed outside his front porch. She claimed it lowered community aesthetics and violated HOA appearance standards. Walter calmly showed her medical paperwork proving the ramp was necessary after his recent hip surgery. Denise didn't care. "This neighborhood has standards," she told him in front of several neighbors. Walter refused to remove it. From that day on, Denise treated him like an enemy. She issued violation notices over tiny things. A garden hose left out for 20 minutes. A flag bracket she suddenly called non-compliant. Even his mailbox color became a problem. Most residents thought Denise had become obsessed. Tonight proved it. As paramedics loaded Walter onto a stretcher, the ambulance attempted to leave the narrow community road leading to the main gate. Then everything stopped. A black Mercedes SUV sat sideways across the exit lane, and standing beside it was Denise Carter, arms crossed, unmoved. "You can't leave through this road," she said loudly. The paramedic froze. "Ma'am, this is an emergency vehicle." Denise pointed toward orange cones farther down the street. "The HOA approved landscaping work this morning. Heavy vehicles aren't allowed across the fresh pavement." The driver stared at her in disbelief. "That man could be having a heart attack." Denise shrugged, then used the back access road. The problem was everyone knew the back road added nearly 9 extra minutes because of ongoing county construction. 9 minutes for someone struggling to breathe. Melissa nearly lost control. "Are you insane?" she screamed. "That's my father." Several neighbors had stepped outside by now. Phones were already recording. One resident, former firefighter Glenn Morris, walked directly toward Denise. "You need to move your damn vehicle. Right now." Denise refused. "This is private HOA property. Procedures matter." Inside the ambulance, Walter's oxygen monitor began beeping faster. The paramedic leaned halfway out the rear doors. "We don't have time for this." Still, Denise wouldn't move. What nobody realized was that another neighbor had quietly arrived 20 seconds earlier. A tall older man wearing a navy rain jacket. Richard Holloway. Most people in Brookstone Hills barely knew him because he kept to himself after moving there 6 months earlier. But Glenn Morris recognized him instantly. Richard Holloway had spent 32 years as a regional investigative reporter for a major national news network, and in his hand was a professional video camera. Richard said nothing at first. He simply filmed Denise blocking the ambulance while Melissa cried beside the vehicle. Then he stepped closer. "Ms. Carter," he said calmly, "are you intentionally preventing emergency medical services from exiting this property?" Denise suddenly looked nervous. "I'm enforcing HOA regulations." Richard zoomed the camera closer. "So your official position is that landscaping rules are more important than emergency response access?" Denise hesitated. That was the first crack. Within minutes, sheriff deputies arrived after multiple neighbors called 911 reporting obstruction of emergency services. Only then did Denise finally move the Mercedes. The ambulance sped away into the rain. But the damage was already done, and Richard Holloway had captured every second of it in crystal clear HD footage. By midnight, 3 residents had already resigned from the HOA board, and Denise Carter still had no idea the worst part was coming the next morning. At 7:12 the next morning, Denise Carter woke up to 17 missed calls. By 7:30, her video was everywhere. Richard Holloway hadn't uploaded it recklessly. He knew exactly how to frame the story because he'd spent decades exposing corruption and abuse of power. The footage was edited carefully, factually, and without dramatic music, which somehow made it worse. The video showed timestamps, the ambulance delay, Walter struggling to breathe, Denise refusing multiple direct requests to move her SUV, and most damaging of all, Denise clearly stating, "Procedures matter." By noon, local news stations across North Carolina picked up the story. Residents of Brookstone Hills were horrified because Denise had always portrayed herself as a protector of property values and community safety. But the footage revealed something different entirely. Control. Petty control. The county sheriff's office confirmed they were reviewing whether Denise violated emergency obstruction laws. Meanwhile, the HOA's legal insurer reportedly contacted the board demanding immediate clarification about liability exposure. That phrase terrified everyone. Liability exposure. Because if Walter Hayes died, the lawsuits could financially destroy the HOA. And Walter still wasn't stable. Doctors later confirmed he suffered a severe cardiac episode that required emergency surgery shortly after arriving at the hospital. One physician privately told Melissa the delay could easily have cost her father his life. That statement spread through the neighborhood fast. For years, residents tolerated Denise because they thought she was strict but effective. Now, people started sharing their own experiences. One couple revealed Denise threatened them over a backyard memorial for their deceased son. Another resident said Denise fined her repeatedly while she underwent chemotherapy treatments. The stories kept coming. By evening, neighbors gathered at the community clubhouse demanding an emergency HOA meeting. Denise arrived wearing a cream-colored business suit, trying to appear composed. But the atmosphere had changed completely. Nobody greeted her. Nobody smiled. Former firefighter Glenn Morris stood first. "You endangered a veteran's life over pavement." Applause erupted. Denise attempted to defend herself. "The rules exist for a reason." "No," another resident interrupted. "You exist because of the rules." That line hit the room hard. Then Richard Holloway connected his laptop to the clubhouse projector and replayed the footage. Silence filled the room as residents watched Walter gasping for air while Denise stood beside her Mercedes with crossed arms. Some neighbors looked physically uncomfortable. Others looked furious. Denise finally snapped. "You people are acting like I murdered someone." An older woman near the back responded coldly. "No, we're acting like decent human beings." That ended it. The board voted 6-1 to remove Denise Carter as HOA president effective immediately. But consequences didn't stop there. Within weeks, multiple residents filed formal complaints against the HOA for selective enforcement practices under Denise's leadership. Attorneys became involved. Financial records were reviewed. Several questionable fines were overturned entirely. As for Walter Hayes, he survived. 3 weeks later, neighbors organized a welcome home celebration outside his house. American flags lined the sidewalks while veterans from across the county stopped by to shake his hand. Walter sat quietly on his porch beside Melissa, overwhelmed by the support. Then someone asked him if he hated Denise Carter after everything that happened. Walter thought for a moment before answering. "No," he said softly. "I just think some people forget power is supposed to help others, not hurt them." Across the street, Denise's house sat dark and empty. A for sale sign stood near the curb. And for the first time in years, Brookstone Hills finally felt peaceful again.